Okay, we're all set on YouTube Live.
Great. Great. Senator Hartley, would you like to start?
Sure. Good morning, members, and I believe, Madam Administrator, if you could just share with me, our first up is DECD, Commissioner Dykes. Is that correct? I see you there, Katie.
Good morning. How are you, Senator?
Yes, very good. Were there questions, Marcy, that Deep was coming back to us on?
Yes, there are some follow-up items that the agency, I believe, is prepared to address.
All right, and if I'm trying to bring those up to you. We probably all have been copied on them, have we? I'm imagining. Commissioner, if you would like to begin, the floor is yours, madam.
Sure. Well, thank you so much, Senator, and members of the subcommittee. We're appreciative of the time today to go over I could summarize some of the responses to some of the questions that were asked of us in the last meeting, and also we have many members of our staff here who are prepared to help answer any other questions that may come up in this work session.
Commissioner, before we go any further, were those responses submitted in writing? I don't seem to be able to find them.
I can't find them myself.
Let me just confirm. I think we had prepared to be able to respond to them orally in today's meeting, but we can also follow up with a written response if.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Super.
so maybe you just kind of walk through the questions as they were, yeah.
Okay, terrific. Happy to do it, and I'll try to go quickly, and then, but understanding if the committee would like to have follow-up or more detail, we're happy to do that. So one question that we received at the last meeting was related to whether DEEP was supportive of extending the fishing season. So yes, we are offering year-round fishing for trout, but we do not offer a year-round season for other species. However, we are working on a regs package that will clarify some of the questions and regulation challenges that have been created by some of the bills on this. The public hearing for that regs package is scheduled for March 16th. There is a question about whether we allow for year-round camping. The answer is we do for backpacking, but not for car camping. Supported by some more of our facilities and so on and so forth. So we do, and I know Mike Lambert is on the Zoom here today. Mike, do you want to just speak very briefly to that?
Thank you, Commissioner. That is correct. However, that is something that we would be open to working with the committee on. We see that there's likely a benefit, and obviously there's an interest in that. So that is definitely something that would be willing to work on and consider that as an option in the future.
The next question that we were asked about was Representative Reyes had asked us about our forestry grants and tree planting programs. And so I'll just note we're able to restart some of our urban forestry programming here at DEEP over the last year and a half. This is a key recommendation from the Governor's Council on Climate Change, and it's been pretty eye-opening to really look at benchmarking Connecticut and some of our urban neighborhoods to on a national scale. I think many of our urban neighborhoods really lag significantly in terms of the percentage of tree cover, particularly in low-income neighborhoods. And so we have been utilizing some proceeds from RGGI to be able to restart the urban forestry grant program. As we know that a lack of tree cover contributes to higher energy costs and energy usage, and a heat island effect in some of those in some of our urban communities. So we have an urban forestry grant program there's a March 15th deadline for some of our urban forestry, our equity through capacity building grant program that we're supporting in partnership with UConn. And so this is one that's specifically designed to assist with organizations and municipalities that don't have a lot of capacity or NGO or partner involvement in urban forestry to be able to get involved in pursuing urban forestry projects and build capacity, technical capacity within their organizations. We know how critical that is. The next question that we received is, I'm not sure if I have the question exactly accurate, but I think one of the questions was how much funding is provided for, or is deep allocating to environmental justice initiatives. I'll just note that we have, of course, made addressing environmental justice a priority across DEEP's programs in a variety of forms, whether it's our energy efficiency work and the Bureau of Energy and Technology Policy focusing on our equity and energy efficiency initiative, or our DEI initiatives that we've been pursuing on our environmental conservation branch to help spur more diverse participation in our seasonal workforce. But in any case, I will note that we have been working to expand our equity and environmental justice office. I'm thrilled that we have been able to identify and sort of do a little bit of reorganization within the Commissioner's office to ensure that we have reallocated 2 positions from within our existing headcount to provide for more robust staffing for that office, which will now have 1 office director and 3 full-time staff once we have completed all of our hiring in that area. So I'll also note that Executive Order 21-3, which the governor signed in December, called for the formation of a Connecticut Equity and Environmental Justice Advisory Council to advise DEEP on current and historic environmental injustice, and staffing of our equity and environmental justice effort will enable us to better support and work with that advisory council, which we're working hard to stand up now. And I'll also note, I know we received a letter from members of the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus talking about the infrastructure bill, the federal infrastructure bill, and asking about what the administration is going to be doing to ensure that those funds are spent equitably. And I'll note that the work of this equity and environmental justice office within DEEP will be engaged across working with all of our DEEP staff to help ensure that the implementation and involvement in various federal infrastructure programs is incorporating equity and environmental justice principles and community engagement as well. So that's just like a quick summary of some of the things that we've been doing with respect to equity and environmental justice, but happy to go into more detail if there's questions. I'll keep going to the next question. I think we received a question about whether DEEP received any ARPA funding for outdoor recreation or for our parks operations. At this point, I'll note that we're very appreciative of the governor's proposed budget, including a recommendation for $25 million in ARPA dollars to be utilized for addressing the backlog of maintenance and repairs and capital investments needed at our park facilities. We know that we have a significant backlog of projects with a lot of aging infrastructure, and it is become even more apparent, how important it will be to address that backlog, given the explosion in visitor interest and public use of our parks during COVID. But that said, we have not received any ARPA funding for parks infrastructure and operations to date. Another question that we received is, why doesn't DEEP charge for out-of-state visitors at our parks? And so actually we do charge for out-of-state visitors in several different ways. Traditionally, we have been charging out-of-state parking fees for out-of-state visitors through manned kiosks at our most popular parks, especially our shoreline parks, where we do get a lot of the highest number of visitors. But during COVID, we also initiated a new program to charge out-of-state visitors a parking fee through a mobile payment system. This has enabled us to extend that collection of out-of-state parking fees at park locations that have lower visitor levels and where it would not be cost effective to pay a seasonal staffer to man an in-person ticket booth. We wouldn't have the visitor levels to be able to offset the cost of staffing in-person fee collection. But with the use of mobile payment system, which is similar to what many municipalities use for public parking, we have been really piloting this new way of charging out-of-state visitors for parking fees. We're doing that at, I believe, 20 of our most popular parks from April 1st to October 31st of each year. So we're still working through some of the issues in terms of connectivity and addressing enforcement, but it's something that we're trying to do to ensure more equitable contribution to our parks operations from out-of-state visitors who enjoy those facilities, but don't pay for the Passport to Parks program because their vehicles aren't registered in Connecticut. I know there's a hand up from Senator Minor, and I have like one more question to go through, but I'm happy to pause if the chair would like to initiate any questions at this point.
I think since you're almost at the end, Madam Commissioner, we'll just finish and then
Okay.
Senator Minor is first up.
Okay, great. So finally, the last question that we had, I believe, was from Senator Summers asking about parks enforcement and what about the need for more enforcement resources to be deployed, particularly to offset any enforcement burdens that are affecting small towns. We obviously we know that there's some unique issues related to Patchogue that we've had a lot of dialogue with Senator Summers about. I'm going to refer to our Deputy Commissioner Mason Trumbull or to Mike Lambert for the response on this last one.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Commissioner. Hello, folks, and thanks for the opportunity. Just following up on the enforcement in parks, we are planning, specifically in the Voluntown area, we are planning on adding one of our seasonal ENCON Ranger officers in Voluntown. We piloted that a seasonal ENCON Ranger program last year with great success, and most of those positions were on our shoreline parks. And so we are, if we're able to hire someone, which we have been recruiting for that position, we will be hiring a position focused on Voluntown. One thing to note, our ENCON officers are always responsible to respond to the calls of highest concern within their jurisdictions. They're not able to necessarily be stationed in one area all the time, knowing that if a call comes in another area, they are obviously responsible to go and respond to that call.
And I misspoke. I apologize, Senator. We actually, there were, in my notes, I realized there's 7 more questions that we had received that I have some brief responses to. So should I keep going, or and is this succinct enough?
Well, people have questions on a number of these areas, but I don't want to lose Senator Minor. Are you still with us, Senator? I don't see his hand any longer.
I'm still here. I lowered my hand to let the commissioner finish.
Oh, okay. All right. You have 7 more, you said, Katie?
Yes, I can try to go a little faster.
Well, Senator, do you want to ask your question now before we get too far down? I mean, I was just trying to keep this in an orderly fashion, but you're welcome to go ahead.
No, actually, it wasn't a question, Senator. It was just a clarification. I sit on the Regs Review Committee, and I've inquired as to whether the agency was notified that there is no meeting in the month of March. So if you're under the impression we're actually going to hear those regs in March, that is not the case.
Got it. I appreciate that update.
Thank you, Senator Minor. Yeah, go ahead. We'll get into the last 7.
Okay, great. So the next question was related to invasive or aquatic invasive species and the program that we've been offering there. Deputy Commissioner Trumbull, would you like to respond to that one briefly?
Yeah, sure thing. Thank you, Commissioner. We did launch our very first aquatic invasive species grant program last year with a lot of success. We did have a robust applicant pool, and since the legislature set that funding source up as a reoccurring grant opportunity, we will be offering that again this year. We had a great response last year, anticipate the same this year as well. So looking forward to that. And we will be sharing more information with you as we move forward on that very soon.
The next question that we received was, what is the plan for Seaside State Park? Senator Summers had asked about that. So we are actively looking for federal grants that could help us, enhance the park and bring it up to the standard that the public enjoys at many of our other shoreline parks. That would include addressing the unique, challenges associated with the historical but deteriorated buildings, improving the beach, installing restrooms. We are actively working with a consultant on developing our federal grant proposal, and we've been eyeing several federal funding opportunities that could be utilized for this purpose. We have been seeing pretty robust competition nationwide for some of these federal opportunities so far, but we're working with the governor's office, Dan DeSimone, as the governor's staff in DC and others to look for those potential opportunities that could help to move this project forward, as we're eager to do so. The next question is, how did or does DEEP plan to spend the $2.5 million in extra funds that were provided for DEEP for FY22 and 23? I believe that this is related to our DEEP infrastructure program. Deputy Commissioner Trumbull, would you like to respond to this one?
Yeah, sure. Just a quick word of thanks to the committee for supporting us to those funds. We have those have already come in, proven to be very useful. We have used some of those to start one of our important projects in Dinosaur State Park in order to get the HVAC replaced in time for the upcoming school season, so we can host field trips there. So we're really excited about that. Also, we expect additional staffing costs this year with the competitive staffing market. So we cover our seasonal staff through our passport budget. So looking grateful to have some extra support there to be able to manage that. And also planning on using some of this to fund some equipment purchases in our parks, specifically focus on mowing and plowing and things of that nature to keep our parks maintained. So very grateful to the committee for those funds.
Great. Another question that we received is whether, with respect to setting up a mitigation fund for marine species or commercial fishermen associated with the development of offshore wind. I'll note that DEEP has resumed the quarterly meetings of the Council on Environmental Standards, which was established by the legislature to help ensure stakeholder involvement in the development of offshore wind RFPs. And the bid from Vineyard Wind that was selected in 2019 committed to providing having the developer provide continuing updates to the CES. I believe that the CES did recommend establishing a fisheries mitigation fund, but it was not a requirement of the offshore wind procurement statute. The bid that was selected from Vineyard did not include a specific mitigation fund for fisheries, but we did encourage the creation of such a fund from developers by providing for the possibility for scoring points in the evaluation of bids associated with the inclusion of that recommendation from the CES. But ultimately, the bid that was selected did not include a commitment, and those points were not dispositive in that sense. But we are, continuing to engage with the CES, and we know that the Biden administration, the Department of Interior, and others are engaging and considering more holistic approaches to addressing concerns from commercial fishermen and from marine species as part of the development of this important resource. The next question that we received with respect to the Pittman, the question was related to the Pittman-Robertson Act or Dingell-Johnson Act, and asking about this federal revenue and how it's dispersed or what the mechanism is for dispersing it. I'll invite our Bureau Chief for Central Services, Dennis Thibodeau, if you could provide a brief response on this.
Sure. We completed our fiscal year 21 annual report on the Pittman-Robertson grants and Dingell-Johnson grants. So we could provide that to the committee. It gives a complete breakdown on how the funding was used. Showing on the Pittman-Robertson, there's over $6.5 million that was distributed to the state and used for programs. Gets into quite a bit of detail, so I think the report is probably super helpful for the community to view.
Great. The next question we had received is, what is the state's plan regarding the Mira facility? And I note that at 10 a.m. this morning, the Environment Committee is going to be convening a hearing, which includes a bill related to a task force associated with addressing the future of Mira. So we'll be happy to supply our testimony on that topic to this committee for consideration as well. I'll just note that DEEP does not sit on the Mira board. We have obviously permitting and responsibilities associated with Mira's facilities, but we do not, with respect to the plan that is contemplated for the future operations of Mira or its cleanup and remediation of the site. Those are issues that are actively, per my understanding, being considered by the Mira board, and the Mira board would be best positioned to be able to respond to that. I will say that to the extent that the potential closure of the Mira facility will have an impact on the state's continuing self-sufficiency in managing our waste, and result in more reliance on out-of-state export in the near term. DEEP has been very active in helping to work with municipalities on measures to reduce municipal solid waste tonnage, which can help to rebalance that self-sufficiency. We've been, and we appreciate the support that the legislature has provided through $5 million for a sustainable materials management grant program that was funded through surplus in the budget last year. We received expressions of interest from 55 municipalities interested in implementing programs. Many of them focused on food scrap and organics collection, which in total is about 30% of the waste stream of the state. And so we are working with about 35 of those 50 towns to help them move forward to the second phase of the application process. I'll note also we're organizing a tour with the city of Meriden. As they are the first through the gate, they have an innovative program for co-collection, which is similar to many of the proposals that many states are pursuing, or municipalities are pursuing through the Sustainable Materials Management Grant Program. And that is on Wednesday morning this week, if that's of interest to anyone on the committee. And then finally, we have also been working to streamline permitting for anaerobic digestion, including in response to legislation last year, and have seen several new organics or food scrap collection or processing facilities get cited or be in process of permitting here in the state as a result. I believe there's only two more questions. So that there was a, let's see, my apologies. I think that the next question was looking for an update on the $5 million that the state has DEEP was provided through the budget last year for the Sustainable Materials Management Grant Program. So I will merge that my answer to the previous question with that highlight about the 50 towns that expressed interest, the 35 towns that have moved forward to the second phase of the application process as responsive to this question. We expect all of the second phase applications to be in by March 31st, and we will be approving them on a rolling basis to be able to enable towns to get started implementing their programs as soon as possible. And then finally, a question that we received specific to what DEEP is doing on mosquito control and invasive plants. And I will turn to Deputy Commissioner Trumbull to answer this one.
Thanks, Commissioner. I think this is the last one. So as far as mosquito management goes, we do have our wetlands mosquito management program at DEEP. It's important for folks to know that we primarily focus on managing mosquitoes on state lands, and then work with municipalities who are responsible to manage mosquitoes on within their various municipalities. We also work with the Department of Public Health and the Connecticut Agricultural Experiment Station to make sure we're monitoring across the state for mosquito-borne diseases. And many of the municipalities that traditionally have positive tests within their municipalities, because it is a pretty regional. Usually the positive tests for mosquitoes happen traditionally in the same place each year, although sometimes there are variations. The municipalities that have those annual positive tests are usually pretty prepared to deal with that, and we do work with them on contacts for spraying and control if those are needed. So again, DEEP manages on state lands, then works collaboratively with municipalities as well as DPA, Department of Public Health, and the Agricultural Experiment Station.
And I think that concludes all of the questions that we were aware of. And thank you for the time. And I hope we were able to be brief, but also provide some meaningful responses.
I have a couple of questions, Commissioner.
Yeah, and thank you, Madam Commissioner. Yeoman's job getting through those. And they are now in our receipt. Have you sent those? Because we didn't have them as of this morning.
We'll be working on getting the written responses over to the committee. I apologize. There's been a lot of hearings in the last couple of days, and we are a bit behind. So I apologize that we haven't. But we'll have that cleaned up and sent over as soon as possible.
That's helpful. Yes, Madam Chair, Senator Austin.
Thank you very much, Senator Hartley. So I have a couple of different questions. We provided some funding in the last year relative to the unfunded fringe liability for the Passport to Parks program. What were you able to do by us funding that portion of the liability for the program?
Sure. I'll turn to Deputy Commissioner Trumbull and Dennis, if you want to provide a response to Senator Austin.
Yes, Senator Austin, thank you. We'll say a robust thank you to the committee for providing that extra support for DEEP. We were able to use some of that funding to support an important HVAC replacement project at Dinosaur State Park. And then also we are anticipating higher seasonal staff costs this year due to the competitive labor market. And so, as you know, we manage those seasonal staff costs through our Passport to the Parks budget. And so as we anticipate a higher cost this year, we plan on using that additional support to make sure that we're prepared to meet those anticipated higher costs.
And I would like to see the what has come into the Passport to Parks and what has gone out and where it has gone, so that we can see that. Relative to the CIA fund, where are you in OSWA grants relative to the state's statutory requirement to preserve a certain amount of land?
I'll turn to Andrew Hoskins or Graham Stevens if you want to provide the response on CIA.
Thank you, Senator. For relative to our goal of securing or conserving 21% of the state's land for open space, we through OSWA, as you know, helps provide matching funds for municipalities, and the municipality goal, or rather the municipality water company and nonprofit goal, non-state goal of that is 11% of the state's land. Currently, we are about, sorry about this, I'm just pulling up my notes. 71% of the way towards that goal, with an additional 101,000 acres to be needing to be secured to meet that goal. For the CIA balance currently, it's about $4 million. So I hope that answers your question.
That does. I have another question relative to the Indian Affairs Council, which is a council that is to be supported by the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. And I've talked to a number of your staff, Commissioner, and I would like to know what you would need to make sure that that council is up and running and working efficiently to ensure that there is constant communication with the state recognized tribes, which include the 2 federally recognized tribes.
Well, I appreciate, Senator, I appreciate your personal investment in helping us work on improving our engagement with the tribes and also the funding that was committed in the budget last year for that purpose. And I know you've been a great support in engaging with our staff on this going forward. And we'd be happy to provide a response to the committee with respect to that question in terms of the specific resources or staffing or et cetera.
Correct. I'd like from you a recommendation on the staffing that's necessary for this to actually happen. Because without it, many of the decisions that are being made by DEEP are not following the statute because there is not a recommendation from the council because council does not effectively exist. And so I just wanted to say that. And relative to dams and dam maintenance, a number of years ago, I have many more questions, Madam Chair, but this will be my last question right now because I see other people have their hands up, Senator Minor in particular. Relative to dam maintenance, we made a policy change a number of years ago because we didn't have money to fund dams or dam maintenance. And now dam maintenance appears to me to be falling behind because many people can't afford it. Individuals can't afford it. What are you hearing on the ground relative to dam maintenance? I mean, I happen to know a bad dam in Sprague, but I know that they're not the only one. So what are you hearing relative to dam maintenance and replacement or renovation or taking down of dams?
What are we hearing in terms of municipalities' access to resources or
Not just municipalities. While municipalities own some dams, there are a number of privately owned dams that get transferred. So for example, the dam in Sprague, that's in bad shape, was owned by an industrial customer in the town. They didn't pay their taxes. We ended up with the land and the water and the 2 dams that were associated with that. But private, I've been traveling the state on a lot of open space, people looking at open space preservation, but they have a dam on their property. If someone takes that on, they take on that responsibility. What are you hearing in general relative to our change in policy to make it the responsibility of the dam owner to handle the dam maintenance and problems?
Thank you for that clarification. Graham Stevens, would you like to respond?
Certainly. Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Senator, for the important question. Dams are certainly something that is top on our list of priorities because not only is it a risk, but it's more of an immediate risk to life and property. DEEP does have the responsibility to oversee dams in the state to ensure that they're safe, and part of that safety factor is that they're maintained properly. And these are infrastructure investments that need to be made on a recurring basis, as you well know. So there are there has been a lot of inquiries recently of the department, primarily with respect to the bipartisan infrastructure law and how those funds might be able to be available to, whether it be municipalities or lake associations or NGOs that own these dams, or even private people who own these dams to make repairs. The best available pot of money, that's the clearest path, we believe, is there are some competitive funds for dam removal projects. The maintenance is the hardest thing to fund because that typically isn't an infrastructure investment. That's typically something that the federal government would want to see borne by the owner of the dam. However, we are evaluating FEMA funds that are available, waiting on some additional guidance from FEMA. Now that pertains exclusively, we believe, to high hazard dams, those that pose the greatest risk to life and property if they were to fail. So we are looking at that and seeing if there's an opportunity for targeting some of the high hazard dams around the state, including those that are within our ownership, because DEEP owns and has responsibility for over 260 dams and 29 flood control structures that benefit multiple municipalities and protect residences around the state. So, it's an ongoing, investigation, but we certainly want to make sure that we get that information out to legislative leaders and municipalities so that, if there is an opportunity to make investments in this critical infrastructure, we do it, in a coordinated fashion so that we invest in the dams that are definitely the dams that we need, whether they be for drinking water, for habitat purposes, for recreation purposes, and that we, bring those monies to Connecticut to protect those assets which protect life.
So, Graham, can you send, I think that there's a link relative to the number of dams that the department is responsible for, or is it an Excel sheet? If it's just a link, that would be helpful, whatever you have, because I'd really, I think there are some groups that are more than willing to help take down a dam because it restores that river or stream to its original shape. And I think that we have to start getting that information out to people. I mean, you've been on calls with me in Ledyard. I know that there's a 4H dam up in Woodstock that needs to be fixed. There's a couple on private property in Norwich, and about the Sprague issue. So these are just, the more I get involved in this, the more that I see that there are more dams that we need to really pay attention to. So thank you very much for that. And thank you, Madam Chair. And I see Senator Minor.
Yes, thank you, Senator Austin. Yes, Senator Minor, very patient. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I want to thank the agency for supplying the document that shows staffing over, I think it's since 2012 or so. And one of the things that I found interesting in that report was that the number of staff for natural resources has gone from 139 to 109. We continue to hear from folks, not only in the Environment Committee, but certainly the Appropriations Committee, and then other public hearing opportunities for marine fish or inland fish where there just aren't enough staff. Could you tell me where the agency is with regard to the open positions currently, and what the agency has planned for the future, given the fact that we keep hearing that there aren't enough people, and there aren't enough people enforcing the marine fishing regulations that we have. Thank you.
Certainly, thank you. I'm going to ask our Chief of Staff, Andrew Hoskins, to provide a response to the first part of your question with respect to where we are with the open positions.
Yes, thank you, Senator. So, with respect to all of the agency's open positions currently, we're working hard to fill them all. We've developed some process improvements internally around our own hiring to do so quickly. We've also worked with DAS and OPM to implement some systems that they've developed in anticipation of this hiring cliff, or retirement cliff rather. And so, we are not simply put holding on any positions that we have currently allocated or appropriated within the agency. I don't know if that answers the first part of your question.
It doesn't really answer my question. I didn't suggest that someone was holding on positions. I was trying to get an understanding, knowing that there is money in the budget, knowing that there are positions that need to be filled, and still hearing that with the positions being filled, it probably is not going to meet the need where the agency is. So there's no specific date by which people should anticipate that if it's 5 or 6 vacant positions now, that those will be filled.
Our hiring timeline for vacant positions is about 90 days or so. So it varies by position. Each recruitment's a little bit different, but we post positions, we go through a hiring process. Over the past year, we've filled over 100 and something positions, 150 positions. I can get you the exact data for that. I don't have it right in front of me at this point.
That would be great.
Yeah, I think just to supplement what Andrew is saying, that the retirement cliff, sometimes I perceive that people think that it will occur all in July of this year, but actually we've been seeing retirements accelerate and turnover accelerate throughout COVID. Because it's a very personal choice for people about when they feel it's the right time for them to go. And so that means that throughout I'll just take, during the last 2 years with COVID in place, we've seen significant number of departures, but we've also been able to refill positions pretty quickly. We have about 135 new full-time employees who have joined DEEP's workforce since March of 2020. We have been working hard with DAS and OPM to streamline the hiring and recruitment and retention recruitment process. And so as there are if you took a snapshot at any moment in time, you'll see a significant number of vacancies because of obviously people are continuing to leave in anticipation of the cliff or as part of the cliff, but we're also have been able to, I think, make really good strides in terms of replenishing and refilling those positions over during that same time period. So as more get hired, more people are leaving. This is part of the churn, but I think we're working pretty effectively through it. As we highlighted in the staffing report, I think some of our, there are some programs that are just because of, how the numbers have shaken out, we may have more people who are retirement eligible in certain programs. And so there may be some areas where, depending on when the turnover occurs, when the departures occur, that there may be more depth, more exposure in terms of vacancies than in other programs. And we're trying to message that to the public to let people know that there may be some interruptions in service and some lack of expertise, but we have been working very hard with succession planning and again, efficient recruitment to be able to replenish those programs. And we're also working hard to, in some cases, post positions in advance of retirements, and even have the possibility of some overlap of new employees with retirement eligible staff in circumstances where we have, a significant number of retirees that could leave and where there could be some continuity of operations challenges. So, but that's just a snapshot of what we've been doing there. It's certainly something we've been addressing across the agency.
So I have just two other questions, and I don't know if you have the information available at your fingertip, but hazard tree removal in parks and campgrounds, can you tell me what the budgeted amount of money is for that in the current fiscal year and what is budgeted for the upcoming fiscal year?
Mhm. So I think with respect to hazard tree removal, I think I would interpret that as the bond-funded hazard tree removal programs, and I'll ask Deputy Commissioner Trumbull or Dennis Thibodeau to respond to that, if you have the numbers in front of you.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Senator, since 2018, we've spent about just over $3 million on our hazard tree removal through bond funds. We don't have any appropriated funds right now for upcoming for hazard tree removal. But like I said, since 2018, we've spent 3 million or just over 3 million through bond funding on our hazard tree removal effort across the state.
Thank you. So if the state has spent about 3 million on that policy, and there's no money directed toward that policy currently, is that what you're saying? There's no plan to take money out of a different line item like the $2.5 million that we gave to the agency in anticipation of trying to offset some of the exposure due to healthcare costs and fringe. That's not a line item. That's not an area where we could anticipate getting a report back if asked 6 months from now that money came out of there for tree removal.
Yes, Senator. So I think we don't have any appropriated funds. So at this point, I'm not sure how much approved bond funding we have left. Right off the top of my head, Dennis or Dave, do you have that information available, or maybe we should get back to the Senator if it's not right in front of us?
Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in a little bit on this. So obviously we have crews that do a lot of that responsibility, not to the level we like to be at. So I think we, as part of our current budget in our field and support services groups, and we work, in hand with parks, but we probably need a little bit more resources dedicated towards it. We use our deep infrastructure bonding when we're, looking for additional assistance. We bought some equipment, but your point, Senator, using the $2.5 million in passport, that would be eligible and a good idea to carve a portion of that potentially for this purpose. So yeah, I think, we have some ideas on how to kind of take those next steps. I think they're being discussed right now, and we'll be working with you.
I just want to clarify that, I think if, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Say they were eligible?
The passport money is $2.5 million. Mason mentioned that we had to use some of that money for our HVAC project at Dinosaur Park. And we have some equipment purchases that we're looking to use some of that money as well. So again, I think the commissioner and deputy commissioner, along with the committee, could work on how to utilize some of that additional funding we have for the remainder of this year and next year.
And just to clarify, Senator, I think, and maybe referring back to some of the discussion we've had with the committee, with the environment on this topic, that when we're talking about, we're engaging in addressing hazard trees on an ongoing basis across our park facilities, whether it's, our park staff or deep staff addressing, hazard tree situations after a storm, or as, all the way up to the bond funded effort, which has involved deep procuring services from third parties to address hazard tree removal in certain circumstances. So I think some of the answer to the question, it may be helpful for us to better isolate out or understand the kind of spectrum of hazard tree removal activity that that you're asking about with respect to the different funding sources, but we're happy to be follow up, provide any follow-up information for you on that.
If you would please, Commissioner, that would be great if you send that in writing. And my last question has to do with the development of recreational mountain bike trails within the agency. I don't need it today, but if the agency could provide this committee with projected dollar amounts and locations for that trail system. Thank you.
Sure. We could respond now, or but we're also happy to follow up with you on this one.
Well, I don't want to dominate the committee's time, and so if you could follow up in writing so that we actually have a document we can look at prior to our next meeting, that would be most helpful.
Sure thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Minor. Thank you, Commissioner. I do not see any other. Senator Austin. Yes, indeed. Go ahead.
And I'll make this quick. I apologize, but I was on another Zoom at the same time. I don't know if this was answered. We had asked for information relative to the 2 federal grants that come in to that, and I never get the name right, and I am convinced I'm never going to get it right. Pittman, help me out.
Robertson.
Thank you. And the other one, on what has been spent in Connecticut, how much has come in and what has it will that come over in your documents?
It will, yes, and we did speak to that a little bit earlier.
Thank you. And then I have a question that is something that we never talk about on this committee, is the other arm of your agency, and that is energy. And so I get a lot of questions relative to energy from my constituents who think that our electric prices are too high in Connecticut. And I know that we passed the Take Back Our Grid Act, which was almost immediately overturned in an agreement with the governor and Eversource. And I've been noticing that a lot of times there is a complete split in Pura relative to these things, and I never thought I'd pay any attention to Eversource or UI. Is there a change in policy in the administration that we're not doing real rate cases that get debated and talked about, that we're doing these kind of in quote settlement agreements, which are not the same thing as a rate case? It's making it very difficult to explain to constituents that we care about the high prices of electricity in the state. So has there been a change in policy?
Well, Senator Austin, respectfully, I disagree with the premise or the characterization that you provided.
Yep.
With respect to the Take Back the Grid Act, it's not, I don't believe that's accurate to say that that statute was overturned by a settlement. I will say that DEEP joined with the Attorney General and the Office of Consumer Counsel in supporting a settlement of an interim rate decrease, in part because we felt that it would enable ratepayers to get relief and a reduction in their bills sooner than through the litigated process, which had been dragging on for some time. And a majority of PURA commissioners approved that settlement. So, I think sometimes there are circumstances where, we can find resolution and find benefits for ratepayers in terms of getting relief faster through a settlement than through a full litigated and appealed process. And I think it was a view of the parties that were involved in that litigation that a settlement would provide those kinds of benefits, again, from that lens of what would be beneficial for ratepayers. But certainly, as a former PURA commissioner, I can tell you it's ultimately up to PURA and to the PURA commissioners to determine whether to accept a settlement. In this case, the majority of PURA commissioners did, but that's always the option in the PURA process, is that PURA could reject a settlement if they believe, the process should move forward and a pure decision would be a better way to resolve it. In addition, Pura also has the ability to add conditions
Commissioner,
to a settlement.
Commissioner, hold on one second. Senator Hartley, I'll take over. Go ahead and take care of your fire alarm. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Okay, well, just say Pura also has the option to add conditions to a settlement if they feel that it would be strengthened by some additional provisions. But in this case, Pura approved the settlement, but we'd be happy to. And I do want to say I appreciate and applaud all the work of the Energy and Technology Committee. Chairs and rankings have been very focused on ways to provide for lower bills and lower electric costs for ratepayers. I will say that is something that we have been working very, very hard to deliver on. At DEEP, it's one of our primary goals, and that was one of the reasons we felt that that settlement was beneficial for ratepayers. But happy to follow up if there would be more detail that would be helpful to the committee in terms of that the position that we took on that settlement.
Right, and as you know, that almost immediately thereafter, in one of its two increases on rates, the rates went up significantly, and many people over this winter are seeing a significant increase in their electric costs, significant. So whatever we're doing is not working.
Well,
I'm sorry, Commissioner. Senator Minor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to follow up on the back and forth we had about the regulations. It is my understanding that the regulations that are currently at the Regs Review Committee have to do with marine fishing, not inland fishing. So, Commissioner, if you could find out before the next subcommittee meeting where the regs package is, that would be helpful.
Happy to.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. And we look forward to getting the written documents, Commissioner. We appreciate the fact that your agency is extremely diverse and has many different tentacles and a lot of things. I could have talked about sewers and a bunch of other things that I think are also equally as important, but in the interest of time. And so we'll talk soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Appreciate the time.
Madam Administrator.
Yes, ma'am. DOH is with us.
All righty. Commissioner, how are you?
Good morning, Senator. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having us here today.
If you want to give us an overview of what you have for questions, and then we'll go into what we gave you for questions, and then we'll go. We obviously will have more questions.
Sure. Thank you, Senator. And we did submit our responses in writing, but I'll go over and then we can have further conversation. And with me, I have Michael Santoro that will help me with some of the answers. The first question was about UNICT, and there were several questions about the number of people who participated, landlords and tenants. And we have assisted 35,770 households and 7,848 landlords. Where are those people from? We provided a chart with the number of cases approved by county, but I'll go briefly. New Haven County, 33%, Hartford County, 31%, Fairfield, 20%, New London, 7%, Middlesex, 3%, Windham, 2%, Litchfield, 2%, Tolland, 2%. How much money went out as of Friday when we submitted the response? We have paid $227,117,897. $185 million was for rent, 41.7 for electric bills. It remains 173,490,000 to process, and we have 33,000 completed applications against that 173 million. And I think that was the first question. Do you want me to continue with all the questions first?
Yep,
Okay.
yeah, so let's finish the answers to those questions, and then
Okay.
we'll ask questions.
Can you confirm we have the correct information that you provided at the hearing? Number of positions open, 10. Number of people eligible to retire by July 1, 2022. I mentioned that already 2 did, and we have 1 pending. How many applications to HR have been filed? We have 5 submitted and another 1 on the way. How long is it taking for those applications to be processed? About 3 months. Number 3, what housing development projects, including town location, are being considered to utilize the 50 million in ARPA funding for affordable housing? So we have not selected those projects yet. We are planning to use the 50 million to leverage some of the resources that we use with CHFA, low-income housing tax credits, and bond financing. And we intend to create about 350 units of deep affordable units. That was number 3. Number 4, can you confirm that we have the correct figures for the way the 5 million for FY21 carry forward funding is being spent in FY22? Cold weather sheltering 3.8, and shelter operations for higher cost 1.2. Those are correct. We did. For the carry forward, actually was 3.5 cold weather sheltering. From those 3.5, the sheltering and staff was 3.8 for cold weather and 1.2 for staff support. And if there was for fiscal year 2022 carry forward, it was 1.5 for mental health services for those in the homeless system, basically for triage and develop a system that can help the shelters and the service providers, as well as the potential residents of the shelters. Question number 5, what strategies are being used to try to keep current rental units and affordable homes available for people who need them, given higher rents and people covering units to Airbnb rentals or selling homes to large companies? Michael, I'm going to ask you to help me with this response.
Certainly, Commissioner, and thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. This is a very detailed response. I'll summarize it by simply saying we bring all of the department's resources to bear to address this issue, as well as to create new housing opportunities. They range from preservation, creation of new housing, creating new housing opportunities as well. The written testimony we submitted has a chart detailing current activity of the department, which includes everything that has been completed under the current administration, that is 2019, 2020, and 2021, as well as projects that have been completed this year and are actively construction. And it's the last one, projects that are actively under construction, we want to bring to your attention. There are more than 4,300 units under construction across the state right now, with a total value in excess of $1 billion to the construction industry. Not all of these are state resources. As a matter of fact, we think about 1/3 of that, about 300 million, are actual state resources. So you can see that we're having a huge impact on the issue.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Michael. Number 6 is, can you provide an updated list of the projects funded through DOH with ARPA? funding other federal and other federal funds provided in response to the pandemic. Please include the amount spent to date for each and how much funding is left now. We had 2 projects that we received ARPA funding for. One was Hands on Hartford and Downtown Evening Soup Kitchen. And those, we have been processing those. Actually, those 2 fund applications have been processed. And we have not received any other ARPA funding. We have not spent it either. We will be receiving 35.9 million in home investment ARPA money, but we haven't received it yet. There are a couple of tables on the following page with the CRF resources that we received and how we spent it. And also we received CDBG for CV COVID. It's also listed all the projects that we funded. And those are the resources that we have received so far. And the last question was, can you provide information about the coronavirus state fiscal recovery fund, the source of the proposed 50 million of affordable housing initiatives? That is part of the federal funding the state of Connecticut received under the American Recovery Plan Act. And for more information is OPM, the recipient and the manager of those resources. That's the end of my answers.
Okay, thank you very much, Commissioner. Senator Hartley, you're back. Do you want to take over, or would you like me to do this while you get settled back in?
Thank you. Yes, Madam Chair, your pleasure. My apologies. I had a fire alarm going off here.
So Representative Dathan is up, so I'll leave you with that, Senator Hartley.
Yeah, you have the floor, Rep. Dathan.
Thank you so much. Sorry, Senator, about your fire alarm. That's annoying. It always happens at the wrong moment. Thank you, Commissioner, for your answers this morning. It's very helpful. Can you remind the committee about, we have an additional balance of about 8 million that needs to go towards the hotel costs to assist with shelter decompression. I understand that there are several places in our state, including in Danbury, where those funds are really needed. And maybe I'm misspeaking it; those have been allocated already. But if you could go into that, I'd greatly appreciate it.
So the 8 million listed in here as a deficit is actually reimbursement from FEMA. So we'll submit those for the hotel. FEMA is still paying 100%, is reimbursing the state for that.
So those funds will be used. We aren't going to lose those funds.
Say one more time. Oh, Michael, go ahead.
Sure. Representative, those funds have actually been expended already. We are simply pending FEMA reimbursement. There's no potential loss of funds. Again, those funds are out the door. As a matter of fact, just late last week, we received information that FEMA has extended their agreement to reimburse us at a rate of 100% through July 1st. So no chance of loss of money. As a matter of fact, we're just waiting to get reimbursed.
Okay, so we have those funds that have already been spoken for, and we're expecting reimbursement. Now, you just mentioned that there is additional, they've extended that, but that doesn't mean we're going to get anything more because we've already spent everything that we've been allocated under that. Is that correct?
No, Representative. Under FEMA, these are eligible costs for non-congregate sheltering. FEMA has agreed as long as we continue to demonstrate the need and the expenditure, they will reimburse us through July first.
And so when you say that we demonstrate the need, what is the decision tree for that?
Following our cold weather protocol, following our shelter decompression guidelines. If we put people in hotels under those guidelines, FEMA will continue to reimburse us.
Great, because I do know that there is a need for this in our state, and I hate for us to not be able to support the people that need housing at this difficult time. So I appreciate that. Do you have those sort of requirements highlighted so just the committee could understand that?
We can put those together and get them sent on. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much, Michael, and thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you, Representative Datham. I am not seeing, hold on here, any other hands raised at the moment. Madam Commissioner, first of all, I want to thank you for getting your answers to us in a timely fashion. That is always very helpful. And if I might just go back to the first question with regard to the assistance to landlords and tenants. And it shows that there are 33,000 applications in process for these funds. And my apologies, I missed this. So all of those applications will be accommodated with the remaining funds? No.
Yes, Senator. That was one of the reasons why we closed and we did not receive any more applications. We're not receiving any more applications.
Yeah. And so, yes, with regard to having shut the program down, are you still hearing from applicants, tenants, landlords? Because I certainly am, and they're in a panic.
What was the question, Senator?
Are you still, I mean, it is closed down, but are you still getting inquiries on the need for this program? I am exponentially hearing, from people all across, quite frankly, the state, now that it's clear that the program is not taking any new applications.
Yeah, so we are hearing from people that have submitted applications and they are in process. As you know, this was an emergency program. I think we have done a good job in responding to that with having paid $227 million in the last 11 months. So we're still processing those applications. We're trying to be as expeditious as we can. We have also seen an increase in fraud, which is also slowing us down. So we will continue with our work and just be as expeditious as we can, as at the same time making sure that we maintain the compliance with the program.
Can you talk?
Michael, you want to add?
If I may, Commissioner and Senator Hartley, thank you very much. One thing I want to be clear about, the program has been paused. We have not closed the program down. It's not shut down. It's operating. We have our staff working, ungodly hours still processing those applications. And should the Treasury allocate additional funds to us, we could literally open the door to new applications at a moment's notice. So I just want to be clear, program's not closed. It's still very active and very busy. We're just not taking new requests at the moment. We are piling through the 33,000 requests that we have in hand.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, and thank you, Michael and Commissioner. And to that point, do you have any idea of the universe of people who now are on the other side of that pause? Because I am getting amazing amount of inquiries.
If I may, Senator, we're not getting a lot of have not applied yet. As the Commissioner indicated a moment ago, we're getting inquiries from people who have applied and either are waiting to get processed or have an incomplete application in the system. Anyone who has an incomplete application in the system can update their application at any time until the end of March. We have done outreach to those individuals. But if you're hearing from people who never applied,
right,
that's of interest, because this, as the commissioner pointed out, was intended to be an emergency program during COVID to address unemployment and other work-related issues during COVID. It is not a permanent rental assistance program.
right.
So we're curious, I'd be curious to know, are the people who are indicating their problem perpetually low income, i.e. it's not COVID related, it's they simply need financial help or housing, or is it in fact new COVID related impacts?
Yeah, so anecdotally, I'll just tell you, what I've heard from both sides, renters and landlords. Landlords who are saying, tenants aren't keeping up to date on their rent, and it is because they are unemployed. And, I'm not sure what the reasons for the unemployment are. I know in one instance, it's a single family household, and there are childcare issues. But, I have received a number of them. I wanted to also make a comment on the information you provided us. And I see that the New Haven County had the highest number of cases, and of course, followed by Hartford. And then Fairfield's a bit of a jump down. But is that relative to the urban centers? Is that where the real hotspots are? Because we see the rest of the state is, pretty plateaued, between 3% and 2%.
Yes, it is. Unfortunately, the cities are the ones that have most of the need. If I just take the cities, the major cities like New Haven, we paid $22 million. And then Hartford was $26 million. Waterbury, $22 million. So yes, the cities have the biggest need.
Yeah, and those are still the pain points.
Yep.
From what I'm seeing here.
If I may, one more thing, Senator. Part of the information we gave you is a link to the department's website. There's a live dashboard that gives you detailed information, and you can actually get by community the number of cases, the amount that's been paid on both for rent and utilities.
By town.
Okay, yeah, thank you, because this conversation is not over yet. But no, I so appreciate the work that you've done, and I know the department has been slammed through all of this. Yourself, DOL, you guys were frontline. Yes, Senator Austin.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Relative to the $50 million that's been put aside, throughout the whole pandemic, we've had a hard time getting ARPA dollars or cared for dollars or any other dollars out the door quickly. How quickly would you be able to get this $50 million out the door?
So we intend to do pretty quickly. We are setting up, we don't have all the projects yet, but as an example, the Connecticut Housing Finance Authority is reviewing 15 projects as we speak for low-income housing tax credits. So we want to make sure that we could use these resources for some of those projects if they're ready to proceed. The state, we are going to be opening up our process, which is called Development Engagement Profile. And we're going to start that process the end of this month. So by the time this budget gets approved, we should be ready to go with some of the projects that we could utilize these resources.
And what do you mean by relatively quickly? Because it's just a relative question. Your term quickly might be different from my term quickly.
Senator, the meaning of that quickly also depends on the developers, right? Sometimes they tell me I'm shovel ready, and then I'm going like, what is that? 3 months, 6 months, or 9 months? Relatively quickly will be about 3 to 6 months with CHFA, because they make decisions from the time that we get the resources to close and to push shovel in the ground.
So 3 to 6 months, we pass a budget in April, 3 to 6 months from April?
Yeah.
Thank you. And then has there been any interest from the administration to put some bonding dollars into additional funds?
We do have in the budget, Michael, help me with the numbers.
Certainly. We do our finance revenue bonding hearing next week, but the administration is looking for an additional $100 million in flex authorizations and $55 million in state housing trust fund. We do have current balances, but those are all essentially committed to projects that are in our pipeline. They have not yet gone to bond commission, but they will be. Therefore, the new allocations, which we hope to get come July, will actually help us in the fall and in the following spring. If you're familiar with the development process, and I'm sure some of you are, we need the money in hand before we can approve a project. It still needs to go and get bond commission approval, but we can't solicit or get make any kind of a soft commitment until we have the resources in hand. Typically, as the commissioner pointed out, from when we get the resources to when we make an award and they get in the ground, it can be 6 months or longer. But relative to the coming year, we will have, or we have requested, $100 million in flex and $55 million in housing trust fund.
And the money that's already on balance there has already been, in quotes, committed to projects. Are you able to release the names of those projects, or is that something that you have to hold on to?
Until we go to bond commission, technically they're not committed.
Right.
We would not typically release those information on those projects until we're ready to go to bond commission. In part, we don't want to give the developer the thought that he has a guarantee, because in order to get to bond commission, they have to meet certain thresholds. They have to provide necessary information, documentation, and certifications to us.
Okay.
Certainly, if you wanted to talk about projects in your district, we could have a conversation about potential projects, but we wouldn't want to release a full list.
Well, seeing as many of us represent large swaths of the state and dabble in other swaths of the state that are, in quotes, not in our district, I'm going to wait to get that information, because as soon as I get it, people are going to want me to share it. That's just the way it is. And if it's non-shareable, I prefer not to have it.
We understand and we agree, and thank you.
So, I do you know if the next bond commission is going to have money in it for housing? Bond commission meeting happening hopefully sometime in March.
No, I think the next one, we are planning to go in April.
Okay. All right. And then the Unite CT dollars, are you hearing anything from the federal government relative to, I know that they've extended the date, but are you hearing anything that might include additional dollars for the Unite CT program?
We submitted a request for additional allocations. That request, we were told they will probably review them and announce the states sometime in April or May.
Okay, and so for that, to Senator Hartley's question earlier, when we were talking about the people that are calling you, disregard the ones that are you're waiting for data on. You might need data. Might not have gotten all that they need to submit. Might not have gotten all that the landlord needs to submit. Are you keeping track of the people that are calling to these other questions? That are calling and saying, "Hey, listen, I missed the deadline. I still need some Unite CT dollars." Are you keeping track of those people so that if you get more dollars that you could reach out to them, or is it going to be then a sort of a, we have to figure out who called you kind of thing?
So we're not keeping track of who is calling, but we do have we are keeping our 16 resource centers until December. And what they're doing is actually helping people to and do referrals to other programs. Like, for example, community action agencies have the light heat program. We were paying electric bills, right? So now they can refer them to the community action agencies. They also have some resources for qualified tenants for eviction prevention or for rent. So they're doing that. And also they're referring people to the like the workplace, some places where they can, if they are unemployed and they're trying to find jobs. So that's the role that the resource centers are playing right now.
Okay. And my last question has to do with RAPs. How many RAPs, how many people do we have that are is there, let me just first ask the question, is there a waiting list for RAPs?
Yes.
How many people are on that waiting list?
Michael, do you have those numbers?
When we closed the application process a number of years ago, we put 5,000 people on the wait list. We are right now at around 2,200 people on our RAP wait list.
And how long does it take someone that's on the wait list to get a RAP certificate?
Again, we opened the wait list, I want to say 5 years ago.
Yep.
And we put 5,000 people on the list at that time. And we still have 2,000 plus left on the list. So it is literally, it could literally be years.
So no one new gets on the wait list. Those are those are 2,200 people that have been on the wait list since 5 years ago.
Correct.
And when Representative Walker and I put additional dollars in for RAPs, that eats away at that number.
So unless you are putting money in the general RAP pot, what historically has been happening is there are specialized pots you're adding for a specific population group. Those, in fact, would be added to, and those new RAPs would be targeted to those population groups. For example, a short while ago, there was money put in place, there were RAPs put in place for individuals affiliated with the Department of Children and Families. Those essentially, we review the existing wait list. Anyone eligible on the wait list would obviously get placed first, and then that's opened up to a more broader eligibility pool, separate from the general rental assistance pool.
And pardon me for not knowing this, but how many different RAPs do we have?
I believe we sent the current RAP report along.
Thank you.
I want to say that there are 7 or 8 pots, if you will, or set-asides.
But the original RAP is still 5 years into it. We have 2,200 people from 5 years ago.
That's correct.
And if you purged that RAP with people who got housing, do you regularly purge that?
We purge that list every year, as is required by statute. We don't get a lot of drop-offs. If we reach out, people generally update their information and remain on the list.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Austin. I don't see any other hands at this time. I just have one follow-up, if I might. The My Home program that is in the offing, I should say, with CFHA. Can you just give us a thumbnail on where that is?
So this week we will get the dates from the vendor for the portal that will be open up. So we still are thinking about sometime the end of this month, but I will have a definitely date sometime by Friday.
So the vendor has already been identified?
Yep, selected, and they have been working on the design of the program.
Okay, and so they're telling you end of March, is that what you're?
Yes, that's when we want to open it up at the end of March. I will have a specific day sometime this week.
Yeah, things are teed up, I think, across the state. You've got the team that's been out there meeting with everybody. Yeah, and we're waiting to try to boost that because that's another, I think, real pivotal program it'll go to, the heart of some of this distress in the housing universe. I do not see any other hands raised at this time. If so, Madam Administrator, let me know. Thank you again, Commissioner and team, for being with us and walking us through these explanations. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And so I guess at this time, Madam Chair, we've gone through our invited guest list. Is there outstanding business to be addressed?
Yes, Chair, we heard that there was a desire on the part of the subcommittee to bring the Department of Labor and the Department of Economic and Community Development back in. So OFA staff and I are working on trying to get them back in late Thursday afternoon. So subcommittee members, stay tuned.
Yeah, we were talking, Sue, what, 3 or 4 o'clock? Is that?
4 o'clock. Yep.
Okay, has that been scheduled definitively?
That has been confirmed now with Representative Gibson's availability. So Marcy and the OFA team are going to be reaching out to the agencies.
Okay. All right. So that's a tentative with the hopes that it's scheduled.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Administrator. Is there any other business before us? Committee members, chairs, Madam Administrator, seeing none at this moment, thanks all for getting together, and it looks like we'll be kind of back together on Thursday.
Hi, Senator Hartley.
Hi.
Good morning.
Gibson,
I just want to say thank you to you and Senator Austin for running the meeting this morning. I had a very busy day here at school, so thank you so much.
It's important stuff you're doing over there, sir. Thanks.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
If we're good, I will bid you all a good day, Monday, and hopefully for the rest of the week. We'll see you again Thursday.